Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'll be doing the second part to my previous video of factorization of quadratic equations using the grouping method, where I explained how you can factorize quadratics where the a value, or the number in front of the x square, is a 1, using 3 simple rules. Here, I'm going to explain how to easily factorize quadratic equations where the a is greater than 1. So for example, 2x squared, 3x squared, 4x squared, etc. And it basically has the same concept as the previous, but with a slight difference. So I do suggest you to watch the first part of this if you haven't already, to grab the concept as a whole. And I've put the link in the description below in case you want to watch it. So as usual, I've written down simple rules to remember, which is these. And honestly, there's nothing complicated about them. You don't have to remember or memorize anything per se. The more you do them, the more you practice, the more you get the hang of it. So the part in green is what is the same from the previous video, and the part in the red is the addition I was talking about. So this is what is new when the a is greater than 1. And it's really easy. I'll be explaining that now. So obviously, for any equation to be quadratic, it has to be in this form or equivalent. So it has to have an x squared term, an x term, and a term without any x, so a plain term, where the a, the b, and the c can be any number, or which can be fractions, decimals, whole numbers, anything at all. So of course it has to be in this form for you to actually factorize it using the grouping method this way. So let's solve some examples, and I explain to you how you can use these rules to factorize any possible quadratic as long as it's possible. So the first one, let's say you've gotten an equation like this that says 6x squared plus 5x minus 4 equals to 0. So let's say you've gotten this in an exam or something, and it tells you to factorize this completely. Now this is very easy to using these steps. The first step, let's go by it. So the first step says find the s and p. Now the s is the sum and the p is the product, and what this is always given in the equation. I've explained this in the previous video, but I'm just gonna go over it again. So the sum and product are always given in the equation. You don't have to per se calculate or find anything that way. It's always given to you. The sum is always the middle number, or the number in front of the x, or the b, anything that helps you remember, honestly. So the sum is always this number, and the product is always AC, which is this number, the a number, times this number, which is the c number. Now I do advise you to always write a little sum and product, or s and p, under your equation so that you see everything in one frame. I do this in all my questions, so it makes things really easy. So write your sum and product, and let's see. So as I said, the sum is always the middle number. So here it is a plus 5. Please don't forget to put the sign. If you put a plus when it's a minus, or a minus when it's a plus, you're gonna get it wrong. So please look at the sign. So it's a plus 5, not a minus 5. Obviously, if it was a minus, you would have written a minus. So it's a plus 5, and the product, as I said, is always AC. So the a value times the c value, as you can see from here. So AC, so here it is plus 6, obviously because there's no minus in front of it, so it's naturally a plus 6 times a minus 4. As you can see, the 4 is not just a simple 4, it's a minus, so you have to write the minus. So which is plus times minus, so that will be minus 24. That's 6 times 4, so minus 24. So your sum number is a plus 5, and your product number is a minus 24. These are always given to you in the equation, so they're really easy to just write down. So once you have the sum and product, you're done with this step. Next step says find two numbers that add up to the s and multiply to the p. So two numbers that when you add them, you get the sum number, and when you multiply them, you get the product number. Now, it might seem a bit complicated if you're new to this, but the more questions you solve, you'll realize that they're usually repeating these numbers, so you easily have them on the tip of your mind. So in this case, two numbers that when you add them, you get a +5, and when you multiply them, you get a -24. Let's see this. So if you look at it, you'll figure out that if you have a -3 and a +8, you can actually fulfill this. What I mean is, -3, let's try adding them to see if we get the sum number. So -3 plus +8, because it's a plus and it's a minus, is equal to, so this is the same as -3 plus 8, which is 5 or +5. So that's what you get. So we do get the sum number. Let's multiply them and see. -3 times a +8, actually. So a minus times a plus will give you a minus, and the 3 times 8 is 24. So when you multiply them, you get your product number. So these are two numbers that when you add them, you get your sum number. When you multiply them, you get your product number. So you know that you can use them. So you're done with this. The third one says, add an x to your numbers and write them back in the equation. Now, it's really easy. As it says, you just add an x in front of these numbers. So let me just write them down here for you. So we have this equation. All we have to do is cancel the middle term and add these back into the equation. So that would mean that, let's write this, 6x squared. Yeah, so we cancel the middle term. Instead we put this, so -3x, put an x in front of it, plus 8x, we put an x in front of it. As it says, add an x to your numbers, so we just put an x in front of them and put them back in the equation, plus, or minus actually, since it's a -4, we're just rewriting the equation with these instead of the middle number, right? So -4 equals to 0. So we have added an x to our numbers. The -3 has an x now, and the +8 has an x now. So we've added an x to them, and we have written them back in the equation in the place of the b, or the middle. So this is what we have now. Final step says separate and factorize. So separating, obviously it's very easy. You've got 4 terms and you have to separate them equally, so you separate them by 2's, so you'll get 2 boxes like these. So to separate them, you'll have 6x squared plus 3x and plus 8x minus 4. And now we factorize them. So we have to factorize them separately. That'll mean that obviously at this point I expect you to know how to factorize, so it shouldn't be a problem for you. So just take out whatever is common. So let's factorize this one first. So what is common in 6x squared minus 3x? Let me just erase this. So what is common in 6x squared minus 3x is a 3. Both of them can be divided by a 3. And an x. So we take out what is common in them. Yeah, it's these two. And we put the rest in a bracket. So here, 6x squared divided by 3x, we will get a 2x. And minus 3x divided by 3x is minus 1. So we're left with this. Now let's do this one. 8x minus 4, what is common in them? So it's a 4. Both of them can be divided by 4, so let's write a plus 4. And 8x divided by 4 will give you 2x. And minus 4 divided by plus 4 is minus 1. Now this is one way to know that you're right or wrong. Your brackets will always have the same values. So your brackets will always be the same. If they're not the same, you should know that you have gone wrong somewhere and you need to correct that. But if you get the same brackets, you can know that you're on the right track. So you get 2x minus 1 and 2x minus 1 are both brackets. Now all you have to do is simply write them together. So the numbers that are outside are 3x and plus 4. So we write that 3x plus 4, put them in a bracket. And the numbers that are inside, since they're the same, so it's okay if we write them only once. So 2x minus 1. And this is your answer. Honestly, there's nothing else to do. You just follow these steps. You have to find the S and P number, and then you find two numbers like we did here, minus 3 and plus 8, that add up to give you the S, and multiply to give you the P. And then you add an X to both of them and add them back in the equation. And you separate them, so divide them into 2, so 2 terms on each side. And you factorize them separately like this, and then just write the numbers that are outside in one bracket and numbers that are inside in the other bracket. It might sound a bit complicated right now, but the more you do it, you won't even need to go by every step. You might just jump steps if you're actually used to it. So just to explain it more to you, let me give you another example here. Let's say, let me write a bit lower. Let's say you're now given 5x squared plus 13x plus 6 equals to 0, and you're told to factorize this completely. Now, let's check our steps and let's go through this again so that you can understand better. Let's see. So the first step says that we have to find the S and the P, so the sum and the product. As I said, the sum is always the middle number or the B number, and the product is always the A times the C. Yeah? So let's write it. As I said, let's just write a little sum and product under your equation so that it's easy for you to see it all together. So your sum number is always the middle number. So it is a plus 13. And your product number is AC. So it's this A times this C. So a plus 5 times plus 6. That is the same as 5 times 6, which is a plus 30. Yeah? So that's what you get as your product. So your sum number is plus 13. Your product number is 30. They're always given in the equation. There's no exception to this. So nothing difficult. Coming back to the steps, it says find two numbers that add up to the S and multiply to the P. So what two numbers that when you add them, you will get a plus 13. When you multiply them, you'll get a 30. This shouldn't be very hard to know. I mean, let's see. How about a 3 or plus 3 if you want to say it that way, and a plus 10. So obviously it's the same as 3 and 10. So 3 plus 10 will give you 13 or plus 13, and 3 times 10, because it's both plus, so 3 times 10 will give you a 30 or a plus 30. So yes, these are two numbers that when you add them you get the sum number, and when you multiply them you get the product number. This shouldn't be very hard to remember. Sum does mean add and product does mean multiply, so you can easily remember it that way. Two numbers that add up to, that sum up to the sum number and multiply to the product number. So really easy. Once you've found those two numbers, add an X to your numbers and write them back in the equation. So just like we did here, we cancel the B or the middle number, the BX. So we're gonna cancel it here as well. This was the middle number. Let's cancel it. And we're gonna add this back into the equation here by adding an X to them. So let's write them here. 5x squared, plus 3x and plus 10x. Let's not forget we have a plus 6 here, so that'll go back to a plus 6 equals to 0. So you now have this. You have written them back into the equation by adding an X to each of them. So you're done with that step as well. Final step, we have to separate them and factorize them. So let's separate them. Since there are 4 terms, as we did in the previous equation, let's divide them into 2 parts. So 2 terms here and 2 terms here. And then we can make a line. I always make a line under them so I can know what I'm working with. And then we factorize them separately. So let's look at this. 5x squared plus 3x, what is common in between them? An x, yeah, so both of them can be divided by an x. Let's open our bracket and we will get a 5x plus 3, yeah, plus what is common here? Let's see, 10x and 6, so what is common is a 2, so let's bring out the 2, and when we divide both of them by 2, 10x divided by 2 will give you 5x, and 6 divided by 2 is a plus 3 equals to 0. As I said in the previous, if you have the same brackets, you will always get the same brackets when factorizing. So if you have the same brackets, you can know you're on the right track, and if you don't, then you have gone wrong somewhere. So as you can see, as I said, I have the same brackets in both places, so 5x plus 3, so I know I'm on the right track. Now that I've done this, I just have to write them together. So that'll give me x plus 2, so the numbers that are outside first, x plus 2, and the numbers that are inside, so 5x plus 3. I don't need to write two brackets, I don't need to repeat the 5x plus 3 since it's the same. I have to write it only once. So the numbers outside first and the numbers inside, and this is my answer, and we're simply just done with it. I will give you another final example so that you don't get confused with it. But before I do that, just please do keep in mind that not all quadratics can be factorized by grouping. So don't hype up if you cannot find your sum and product numbers, the two numbers that add up to give you the sum and product. It's fine if you cannot find them. And it just means that you're supposed to use other methods, which I'll explain in my next video. And honestly, even if there are solutions to a quadratic by grouping, but you cannot do the grouping method for some reason, maybe because you've forgotten it due to exam stress, it's still alright because other methods can still do the job. So I will be doing them in my next videos as well. Just that the grouping method is a bit quicker, so it's better to know it. Moving on to my final example before I end this video. Let's start it. Let me just put it here. So let's say the question gives you this time 9x squared plus 12x plus 4 equals to 0. And the question tells you to factorize this completely. Now let's look at it. So the first step says, coming back to this, these steps apply to all equations. Yeah, all equations where the a is greater than 1. So there is no exception. Just use these and I can guarantee you'll get the right answer. So the first step says find the S and P, the sum number and the product number. As I said in the previous two examples, the sum and product, so let's write them down here. Product here. And the sum, as I said, is always the middle number or the B or the number with the X. So here it is a plus 12. Just put it in different, yeah. So plus 12. And the product is always AC. So our A is a 9 plus 9. And the C is a plus 4. Luckily both are plus. So we just have to multiply them. AC. So 9 or plus 9 times plus 4, which is plus 36, if I'm not wrong. Well, so a plus 36 and a plus 12. So what two numbers, when you add them, you get a plus 12, and when you multiply them, you get a plus 36. That is what our second step says here. So find two numbers that add up to give you the S and that multiply to give you the P. So what two numbers will add up to give you a plus 12 and multiply to give you a plus 36? This is really easy. Obviously, I mean, most of you would have guessed by now. So a plus 6 and a plus 6. So 6 plus 6 is obviously 12. So it does give you a plus 12 as a sum. And 6 times 6 is plus 36. So it does give you a product. So these are your two numbers. They can be the same. It's fine if you have the same numbers. That doesn't mean you're wrong. It can still be possible. So a plus 6 and a plus 6. Once we've found our two numbers, we have to add an x, as it says here, to your numbers and write them back in the equation. So let's go back to this. As I did in the previous two examples, just cancel the middle number and put these two back in. So let's write it. So 9x squared, you have to write this the same, plus 6x plus 6x, even if they're the same, you still have to write both, plus 4 equals to 0. So we've written them back into the equation by adding an x, like this, to both of them. We've added an x to both, and we just added them over here. So we're then done with that step as well. So let's go to the final step before I finish. Separate and factorize. Very easy, just divide the 4 terms into 2. So that way these two and these two, and then we can make a line to make it easier for us to know what we're working with, and we finally just factorize them separately. So what is common? Let's look at the first one. What is common between 9x squared plus 6x? A 3, because both of them can be divided by a 3, yeah, and an x. Both of them do have an x, and they can be divided by an x, so 3x is common in both of them. Let's make our bracket. What are we left with? 9x squared divided by 3x will give you 3x, plus 6x divided by 3x, that will give you a 2, so plus 2, yeah, so 3x plus 2. And now let's look at the final one here. So plus 6x plus 4, what is common? A 2. They can both be divided by 2. Let's bring our 2 out. And what are we left with? 6x divided by 2 will give you a 3x, and the 4 divided by 2 would give you a 2. So again, as I said before, as you can see clearly in my brackets, I have gotten the same values. So I know that I am right. They are always the same values, and this is how you know that you're right. So let's just write them. So let's write the ones outside first. So 3x, and this one goes as a plus 2, and what's inside? 3x plus 2. The brackets can be the same, it's all normal, it's all fine. So yeah, this is the answer, and this is just how easy it is, honestly. Just follow all these steps. Just find the sum and product number and then find two numbers that add up to the sum and multiply to the product, as we did in all the examples. We cancel the middle term, and instead we add an x to both of the numbers we found and put them back in the place of the middle term. And then we separate them or divide them into 2. We can just put a line under them, and then factorize them separately, and then write the ones outside together, and then write the ones inside together. And you don't have to repeat both of the brackets if both of the brackets are the same, so you know you're right. I hope that was easy enough. If you want me to solve more examples on this or past paper questions or anything like that, please do comment down below, and please tell me what you think about the videos and how I can make things better. And if you want me to explain any particular topic, then please also do tell me, do comment below. And please like, subscribe, and share the video, and I hope you like it.